This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. On this edition of FedGov Today, U.S. Southern Command changes the game on autonomy, building healthier service members one at a time, and a special software track for special operators. Welcome to FedGov Today in Washington, D.C. and around the world on the American Forces Network. I'm Francis Rose. Autonomous systems and human-machine teaming will be two of the focuses of U.S. Southern Command's new Autonomous Warfare Command. General Francis Donovan, the commander of SOCOM, told Armed Services Committee members on Capitol Hill recently one of the goals of the SAWC is, quote, to greatly increase lethality, all-domain awareness, and data sharing for U.S. and partner forces. At Soft Week 2026, General Donovan tells me he calls his vision for execution the Olympic rings.
You have the requirements coming from the Joint Force Forward, like in U.S. Southern Command. Those requirements enter back into the Pentagon requirements process through their services. And that's where the Olympic rings don't always touch. And so for autonomous warfare, and the fact that I believe autonomous warfare has to be joint warfare. Otherwise, we have self-flying helicopters and self-driving tanks doing their own thing, but we're not maximizing autonomy. And so really coming into command, we wanted to maximize the fact that we want to drive a demand signal to the Defense Autonomous Warfare Group of the truly joint approved requirements from the combatant commander to then have those requirements compete for resources, but also use the dog as our forum to work with vendors, to tech, VCs, to do best of breed. And then we just make sure our demand signal's tight. We have our operators tied with that tech dev. Then we can bring those capabilities forward into Southcom. And as we kind of were thinking, Francis, is that, as we look at Southcom as according to the national security strategy, we are a priority effort. But I don't always need a carrier strike group. What I need is the right balanced force, tailored forces for our missions at hand. And I think autonomy is going to be the backbone of that. And so the Autonomous Warfare Command will be our forward edge to not only work with the dog, but at the same time, synchronize joint autonomous effects for the supported JTF commander and U.S. Southern Command.
I want to come back to that idea of what you need later in the conversation, but I'm reading from the Military Times. Once fully operational, the new command will be tasked with engaging autonomous, semi-autonomous, and unmanned platforms to counter threats across domains. What will it take for you to become fully operational? What's that look like in your view?
Well, we are very quickly here. We'll come initially operation capable. We're bringing in a great colonel from the United States Marine Corps, intel officer with special operations background, and Colonel Ian Fletcher will be our first commander of the Southcom Autonomous Warfare Command. We're going to build out the shell, but we're also don't want to do brick and mortar right away, because this is where we have to really kind of ensure that if you embrace autonomous warfare, how do we actually leverage the great capabilities that are already in place and a lot of great tech dev that's happening around us, and then centralize the demand, centralize the movement forward, let our components move forward, but then have that bow that brings it together. So initially we'll be IOC relatively quickly because we have the right commander and the core staff we're carving out. Get the commander time on the ground to get a good feel for what each of our components are doing, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force now, and then how to bring that together, then accelerate. And then we'll end up, I think within 6 months, be almost at FOC, because again, it's not a command that we think J1 through J10, and it's very different and dynamic. Maybe an example of what we experienced in the dog. Small team moving fast, connecting, driving demand signal, and then delivering a product.
So back to that point about what you need. Your mission is shifting in Southcom. You're talking about drug trafficking, obviously very high profile now, yes, but at the same time thinking about other things that are going on in the Southern Hemisphere. Russia and China, obviously always a priority for the department. How does that inform the way that you're going about structuring not just something like this for command in particular, right, but more broadly across your entire command?
Francis, it's a great question. And really, if you think about it, to make autonomous warfare work, we focus a lot on, around us today, a lot of platforms. Mm-hmm. We think about the thing that flies or swims or subsurface or goes into a cave. that's a platform, and we'll iterate on those and use them and move on. It's really the data architecture environment, how we tie those across our hemisphere and across the Southcom AOR, how we create the right data flows so whatever service comes in, that tool, we can use it effectively. So I'll start with saying that the first push on this is to ensure that we're creating the right architecture that we can use autonomous warfare to its maximum extent. The reason why I bring it up is because back to, I think, really answer the question is that when I've met with partners across our theater, and right now I've met with about 27 of our chiefs of defense, my counterparts, really, really good teammates. A lot of the conversations we have are about domain awareness, maritime or air domain awareness. You see further over the horizon in the maritime domain, or be able to go up under large ungoverned spaces in the land domain and not only track aircraft moving through their space that aren't registered, or identify pop-up clandestine airfields that nefarious actors are using. So really we want to use the Autonomous Warfare Command as also a partner engagement platform. So you think about it, if we have a autonomous, one of the projects we're pushing in first is, we call it the Hemispheric Maritime Pursuit Craft. So a craft that can go 2,000 nautical miles unmanned. It's collecting data the whole time, domain awareness. The partner gets it, we get it, JADF South gets it. And so we're assisting with our partners' domain awareness. We're all getting smarter. We're meshing the data together for whatever finish we're looking for. Now, just to pivot off it, and I'll kind of close this out by what's interesting about looking at the counter DTO fight, designated terrorist organization fight. What I really believe is, I believe the environment that these DTOs flourish in, it's the same environment that these maligned actors like China and Russia and Iran also want to create to flourish in. A area in a host nation that is almost lawless, that they can do illegal mining, they can influence, they can do dual use infrastructure. So what we're seeing is a bit of a nexus, that the more we create domain awareness and identify what those nefarious actors from DTOs, from point of production to point of distribution in the networks, but at the same time, we're picking up the threads of what these maligned actors are doing in those exact ungoverned spaces. Domain awareness helps identify those actions and develop counters.
We just have a couple of minutes left. I want to go back to the SAWC. How will you determine the mix of vehicles that you need in that fleet?
I think we have to look at what our partners are able to ingest, because again, really quickly, I think about that we will be always in an away game, in the sense that, so if it's a boat, it comes from where, launched by who, maintained by who. Those are real questions we have to look at. Logistics are the backbone of everything we do. And I'm an infantry officer, special operations officer, logistics. It's about logistics. So where we can launch, operate, sustain from will determine our demand signal. So if we have partners, we have systems we could use from our 4 locations because they have great partner relations, or we would like to give to our partners to use. It'll all be based on those ABO requirements that are always there. And then from there, what's the demand signal based on how many systems we can employ and how we synchronize those effects.
Southcom Commander General Francis Donovan. You can read more about the Autonomous Warfare Command on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, building healthier service members one at a time. FedGov Today continues in a moment. Are we ready for a vertical leap into a new era of reinvented government? In episode 2 of the 4 Futures of AI, presented by EY, you'll enter Transform. You'll witness the dawn of artificial general intelligence, where agentic systems autonomously execute complex government workflows and manage national infrastructure. As the public sector deploys these revolutionary tools to double R&D productivity, the ultimate race is on to secure America's advantage in global AI. Watch Transform, May 31st at 10:30 a.m. on ABC7 in the D.C. area, or stream worldwide at 4futures.ai.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems, streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation. We drive it. Maximus.
Welcome back. The Navy's No Sailor Lives Afloat initiative is taking a step forward, according to speakers at a symposium at Navy Installations Command in San Diego recently. The other military services are looking at ways to improve quality of life for service members and their families, too. Frank Wakeham is Senior Managing Director and Defense and National Security Lead at Maximus. At SOF Week 2026, he tells me Special Operations Command has its own plan for quality of life.
SOCOM has had the Preservation of the Force and Family program in place for about a decade. And one of the cornerstones of that is this holistic approach to health. So when we think about operators and force readiness and force endurance and mission performance, everything from injury prevention, injury recovery, etc., it's across 5 pillars: the physical, the psychological, the cognitive, the spiritual, and then the social and family. And it comes with a strong recognition that that ecosystem of individuals in the from the operator's team to the operator's family to all of the support functions all need to be synchronized and integrated and working towards sort of the same direction. And it's a sort of global presence that supports not just here at SOCOM, but at the TSOCs and component commands and other places.
Is there one of those pillars or a couple of them that prove to be more challenging or more important or whatever than the other?
No, I don't think so. I think they all are very significant and important components. I know from my time in service that when a service member deploys, the family unit and their family's stability and social network and support functions available to them are really important for the service member's ability to stay focused on the mission. So the family and the social fabric is really important. Obviously, in this community, the physical is very important, but human behaviors, the psychological, it's a stressful, high-pressure environment, are important. The cognition piece and the decision support and sleep deprivation, all of those things come together to maximize operator performance and mission success.
What are the approaches that you've seen that organizations like SOCOM and others can take to drive success in all 5 of those kind of in a holistic way?
Yes, like I said, it's been the POTF program's been in place for about a decade, and they've had great successes across those pillars. I think there's a couple of things that stand out to me. One is around scale. So the partnership with a vendor team that has the depth and breadth of not just expertise across those 5 pillars, but also intimacy with the mission and understanding the mission outcome objectives and the challenges to those. And increasingly today, there's a very strong technology component. So when we think about scale, we think about speed, and we think about agility. All of those things require teaming, a purposefully built team that can come together with a global reach and that depth and breadth and really partner and become integrated into the community fabric as a member of the team, not just here in SOCOM, but in the theater commands and the component commands as well.
What's the technology piece, and what do you see coming down the road technology-wise that will help these people do what they need to do?
Yeah, I think there's 2 principal vectors for that. One is around the increasing ability to bring data together and garner insights, performance insights, feedback insights, identification of gaps, measures of effectiveness in closing those gaps. And the data sits in a lot of different places. So like the rest of the services in the Joint Force, the ability to bring data together, to curate that data, to normalize that data where you need to, and then put that in an aggregated place where you can lay on top of it data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. It gives us the opportunity to move from sort of diagnostic analytics to more predictive and prescriptive. We can get a little farther left of the problem. We can do a little more proactivity in programs and program elements to address maybe the challenges affecting mission performance and both at the team level and the individual level.
Frank Wakeham of Maximus. You can read more on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, a special software track for special operators. FedGov Today continues in a moment.
The importance of ever-changing policy in healthcare delivery, whether they're alternate payment models that are being constructed or ways that we focus our healthcare system presently on trying to identify areas of fraud and abuse and so forth.
We always ask the question, do I need to collect the PII at a PHI? If I don't need to collect it, I don't collect it. If it is required, then that's the second part of the question comes up. Okay, now I have to
a week to process some of the claims, and now they can do 700 of the claims in a day.
Wow.
So, that's what you're starting to get into with using AI, and it's very, even at that administrative level.
Welcome back. The innovation lab that helps small and non-traditional companies work with Special Operations Command, SoftWorks, is growing faster than ever now. SoftWorks announced at SoftWeek 2026 it's let more than $500 million in contracts. That's more than 4 times as many contracts as it had handled 3 years ago. Leslie Babich is director of SoftWorks at SoftWeek 2026. I asked her what helps her get an edge on innovation.
The culture at Soft really helps us enable this process. But a couple of things that we do, we're a nonprofit organization. We have a partnership intermediary agreement with United States Special Operations Command. And what we try and do is lower the barrier of entry for companies to engage with SOCOM. And we do that in several different ways. The first is, we have a facility that's off base. And so that actually does speed things up because a lot of folks are not familiar with the process to get access onto a military base, and even more so into a classified facility where you need badging. And sometimes that can actually be a deterrent for doing business with government. If the first engagement is that hard, what's the rest of it going to be like? So we allow, engagement to occur off base in a very friendly commercial facility. And I think it's actually more comfortable too, because we do encourage our military stakeholders to not wear uniforms to try and kind of make it even more of an easy engagement. The second is, we have an ecosystem. It's actually increased over 100,000 by now. And what we do is we send emails to the folks that are in our ecosystem about operational challenges. So they don't actually have to go search on SAM.gov. Many of the companies that we're trying to work with have mostly worked in the commercial space where they're brand new startups and they're just not familiar with SAM.gov, or they don't have a cage code. And so we can just push emails to them with business opportunities, if they're interested in working a special operations need. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing that we do is we have the authority to award a commercial agreement. So still not in that government construct in terms of a government contract, which has a whole lot of regulations that go with that and requirements for companies to have cage codes or certified cost and pricing structures to be awarded a government contract. So we can do a commercial agreement. And really, I would say our business process mitigates risk on both sides of the fence. For the companies, if they're just figuring out if they want to do business with SOCOM, this allows them to dip their toe in the water without investing a whole lot in their infrastructure to see if SOCOM is the right customer for them. And on the SOCOM side, they can actually evaluate technology much sooner than you could with a FAR-based process and at a lower cost. So it mitigates the risk for them as well.
Mm-hmm. What of that would work in other parts of the military? Because you're doing things that other parts of the military say, this is our goal, maybe not having as much success.
Yeah, I would say there are about 100 partnership intermediary agreements throughout government. And each of them kind of operate differently in accordance to how their stakeholder, their partner, wants them to work. And so it's really about how you interpret the authority. And SOCOM, again, the culture is let's figure out how to get stuff done. Mm-hmm. And so, they work within the authority, but I think that their risk culture is let's try something different Because if we're doing the same thing over and over, we're going to get the same result. So let's try and do things a little bit differently and see how that works out. And because we're in the development space, we're not in full rate production. We're not doing, large government contract awards to award procurement to companies, for years upon years upon years. We're really in the risk reduction space in the development area so that SOCOM can develop engineering samples and prototypes very quickly, very cost effectively. And so I think the authorities are there for the rest of government to do the same thing. It's really just more about the culture and willing to do things a little bit different.
We talked a little bit before we went on the air, and you said you're here the whole week and you're talking to tons of vendors. What are the questions that you're asking them about anything, whether they're to figure out whether they're qualified to work with the department, to figure out whatever you need to know?
Sure. So, everybody's here. They want to work with SOCOM. They want to share their technology. I would say it's a pretty competitive space. And so when we're talking with companies, it depends too, if they've been in the space for a while or if they're brand new. If they're a newer company, trying to help them figure out maybe what stakeholder in SOCOM is right for them based on their capability. And it might be born to one. So trying to kind of steer them in the direction of what briefings to go, listen to, what tables to go visit. For the bigger companies, maybe they've worked with other services and agencies before and they're trying to figure out, again, who in SOCOM would be the right customer. So that's kind of stage number one. Number two is, again, it's a competitive space. So, if you're in the drone space, what is your differentiator? What makes you special as compared to all of these other drone companies that are here wanting to work with SOCOM? And then also, have you worked with other government partners before? If so, would they be interested in maybe reaching out to SOCOM? Is it a similar problem that they're both trying to solve and maybe they could partner on a development effort to really save taxpayer money? And then finally, what's your desired end state? What's your goal? Some companies, like some startups, they actually just want to keep developing and maybe their desired end state is to sell their capability to a larger company for integration. But maybe they actually want to become one of those subprimes or DOD primes. So really kind of understanding their goals.
What's the biggest obstacle that you've seen from the good idea that you see at a conference to actually getting something that's ready for a prototype?
All right. So I think there's a couple of things that we see quite a bit. So budgeting for government is very cyclical. It's calendar based. And a lot of the dollars are already programmed to develop or sustain current capabilities. So when we see something new, or if SOCOM sees something new, there's like an emerging technology that they would love to kind of develop and adopt right away. Sometimes the issue is what funds are they going to use? There's traditionally maybe some RDT&E, research and development funds available, or maybe some operations and maintenance funds available, but a lot of the procurement dollars to purchase and sustain are programmed for other things. So I think budget flexibility is one of those things. Timing is always something. You're kind of chugging along and then some operations pop up that might change your priority or change where the money's flowing, kind of what we currently have going on. Again, kind of back to budget too. If you have a continuing resolution, you have to kind of kick that can down the road before you can actually start. And this is the program offices, not necessarily us, before you can actually start obligating and executing funds. So again, I think budget does have a lot to do with it. Successful companies, though, in general, they have eternal patience and persistence. They're very good at listening to the voice of the customer. You've got to maintain the strength of your product, but you also want to flex to what your customer needs. One of my chief technology officer is very fond of saying you can't boil the ocean. So you do have to pick where your strength lies, then flex a little bit to meet those customer needs.
We have about a minute left. You're from the special operations community. How does that inform the way that you go about doing what you do?
Again, it's culture. I was in Air Force Special Operations Command for 20 plus years, and you get things done. So, and again, we've got regulations. You have things that you have to follow, Federal Aviation Administration, all of those things. But within those parameters, within those constraints, you get very creative at figuring out how to get stuff done. Building relationships with people, building trust, I think is really important too. When we're working with companies, we're a neutral entity. We don't share their IP or data with anybody else. That is something for us to share only with our government stakeholders, so they have to trust us to know that we're going to do that.
Leslie Babich of SoftWorks. You can read more about SoftWorks on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in a moment.
How do you defend against that? The most critical thing that I think about from that perspective is the phrase living off the land.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need, as a threat actor, I don't need to necessarily come in and exploit every element of your network. I can come in and use your tools against you. So if you've got an LLM that is understanding your network and your data and your applications, I can just ask it, go find the good stuff, get it for me, and then I'll take it out the front door. So its visibility is critical.
Welcome back. Episode 2 of the 4 Futures of AI documentaries coming next. Today, it's the transform scenario. You'll get a preview of what a vertical launch into artificial general intelligence might look like. It's on ABC7 in just a few minutes at 10:30 a.m. You can watch it on demand, too, at 4futures.ai. FedGov Today TV is back next Sunday morning at 10. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. I'll see you then. Are we ready for a vertical leap into a new era of reinvented government? In episode 2 of the 4 Futures of AI, presented by EY, you'll enter Transform. You'll witness the dawn of artificial general intelligence, where agentic systems autonomously execute complex government workflows and manage national infrastructure. As the public sector deploys these revolutionary tools to double R&D productivity, the ultimate race is on to secure America's advantage in global AI. Watch Transform, May 31st at 10:30 a.m. on ABC7 in the D.C. area, or stream worldwide at 4futures.ai.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems, streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation. We drive it. Maximus.
If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the FedGov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today.